unidentified object entering U.S. airspace.
Confirm. Object moving at Mach 10.
All units, intercept now.
Welcome to this explainer. You know, if you've ever looked up at the night sky and wondered what's really out there, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're diving deep into the seriously fascinating world of unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. But we're doing things a little differently. We're shifting our focus completely away from the pop culture mythology, the sci-fi movies and tabloid magazines, and instead, we're looking strictly at hard, modern military sensor data and historical analysis. There's a whole fleet of them. It's rotating. That famous quote from U.S. Navy pilots back in 2015 captures the absolute awe of a modern UAP encounter perfectly. But it leaves us with a really profound question to unpack. Are we actually being watched by some non-human intelligence? Or are our own eyes, our own minds, and our highly advanced military sensors just deceiving us? Let's start with Section 1, the cultural UFO archetype. To really get this, consider a concept called the psychosocial mirror. Looking back through history, reported UFO shapes actually evolve perfectly in tandem with our own technological progress and our own anxieties. Back in the 1890s, right during the Industrial Revolution, people reported mystery airships. Then in the 1950s space age, suddenly it was sleek flying saucers. In the 1990s, when we were developing stealth aircraft, everyone saw massive black triangles. And today, in the era of drones, the dominant shape is the metallic orb. It's almost like we're projecting our own technology right onto the sky. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer power of mass panic. Take the famous Battle of Los Angeles, which happened just months after Pearl Harbor in 1942. The military fired a staggering 1,440 anti-aircraft rounds into the night sky over California. Tragically, there were 5 civilian casualties from all the chaos. But here's the kicker. 0 enemy aircraft were actually found. Historical analysis tells us this massive engagement was highly likely triggered by a single stray weather balloon, completely compounded by extreme collective war nerves. So this builds into a historical pattern of what analysts call spatial-temporal memory blending. A perfect example is the Phoenix Lights in 1997. Thousands of people reported a massive, silent, V-shaped craft. But real investigations revealed it was actually 2 completely separate, ordinary military events. First, a formation of A-10 jets, and then, hours later, a drop of military flares. But the public cognitively blended them together into one massive, otherworldly narrative. And hey, geopolitics absolutely played a role in how these stories spread, too. During the Cold War, the CIA actively monitored these wild foreign tabloid reports. There was even a bizarre Ukrainian newspaper story about aliens literally turning Soviet soldiers into stone. Obviously, intelligence agencies weren't tracking this because they actually believed it. They monitored these stories simply to keep tabs on potential psychological warfare, technological breakthroughs, and foreign disinformation. Moving on to Section 2, modern military sensor encounters. Let's fast forward to the 21st century. The 2004 USS Nimitz encounter completely changed the game. It introduced us to the featureless Tic Tac object. Commander David Fravor described a smooth 40-foot cylinder with absolutely no wings and no exhaust plumes. And crucially, this wasn't just a visual sighting. Advanced Aegis radar tracked these objects dropping 60,000 feet in mere seconds, which completely baffled highly trained Navy pilots and radar operators alike. To put that into perspective, an object dropping 60,000 feet that fast literally defies everything we currently understand about aerodynamics. Then, 10 years later, we get another strange shape reported. Following upgrades to their AESA radars, pilots from the USS Theodore Roosevelt reported near-daily encounters with bizarre phenomena off the East Coast. One pilot described a near miss with a dark gray cube suspended inside a translucent sphere. Keep in mind, these weren't just blurry lights in the distance. These were solid objects operating dangerously close to restricted military training zones. All right, Section 3, Illusions, Sensors, and Skepticism. Let's impartially examine the science here. Let's look closely at that gimbal video from 2015, the one where the pilots exclaimed the object is rotating. Skeptical analysts like Mick West point out how the ATFLR sensor pod actually functions. When the camera tracks a hot target, like the exhaust of a distant jet, and it crosses a physical boundary in its housing, the internal mechanics actually have to rotate to maintain the lock. So the glare appears to spin on the cockpit screen, but the physical object, way out in the distance, it's likely not rotating at all. Now, to understand another really famous piece of footage, the Go Fast video, we have to talk about parallax. It's a basic optical illusion. Basically, when you're moving very fast and looking at something below you against a distant background, like the ocean, your brain naturally misjudges the object's speed. And when you run the mathematics on Go Fast, the perceived reality totally flips. The pilots thought they were looking at a hypersonic object skimming the ocean. But the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, analyzed the exact telemetry numbers displayed on the video screen itself. Using basic trigonometry, they proved this object wasn't skimming the water at all. It was actually up at 13,000 feet, just drifting slowly with the wind at conventional speeds between 5 and 92 miles per hour. It wasn't a hypersonic saucer, it was likely just a balloon. That brings us to Section 4, the rise of the orb. Let's dive into the massive data sets compiled by AARO, summarizing modern military sightings. Over half the reports, 53%, are simply what they call junk data. That's where a fleeting radar blip or a distant light is just too vague to even assign a shape. But of the objects that can actually be identified, 25% are simple orbs or spheres. And the classic flying saucer, it makes up a measly 2% of reports. The 21st century anomaly is overwhelmingly a metallic orb. And here is the absolute most definitive number from ARO's ongoing investigations: 0. That's right. Despite processing over 1,600 cases, the Department of Defense officially states there is zero empirical evidence of extraterrestrial origin, or that any of these objects represent off-world technology. Which leads right into Section 5, a world of prosaic explanations. So, if it's not aliens, what exactly are these highly trained pilots and multi-million-dollar sensors seeing up there? Well, ARNO and historical researchers have identified the usual culprits. The vast majority of UAPs are just airborne clutter, like weather balloons or escaped Mylar party balloons from a weekend birthday. Sometimes they're completely natural phenomena, like lenticular clouds that perfectly mimic hovering saucers. And in a really fascinating modern twist, a train of Starlink satellites reflecting sunlight at the exact same time can completely trick observers on the ground into seeing a massive, solid black triangle in the sky. Finally, Section 6, the unresolved anomalies. Because we really have to ask, what happens when we rigorously filter out all the balloons, the clouds, the drones, and the sensor artifacts? According to the data, a small fraction of cases do remain genuinely unresolved, and they exhibit characteristics that completely challenge our understanding of physics. One of the most baffling is the cold anomaly. Think about how incredibly hot a jet engine gets. Physics dictates that a high-speed movement creates massive friction and heat. Yet, some of these objects are tracked moving incredibly fast while registering absolutely no thermal exhaust on infrared cameras, sometimes appearing as cold as -60 degrees Fahrenheit. Then there's the insane challenge of transmedium travel. Human engineering is strictly bound by domains, right? An airplane tears itself apart if it hits the water at high speed. A submarine definitely can't fly. But a handful of highly compelling military reports and videos describe objects that transition seamlessly from the sky straight into the ocean, without slowing down and without taking any structural damage whatsoever. So, as we wrap this up, when you strip away the cultural myths, the runaway balloons, and the optical illusions, we are left with a tiny percentage of cases that entirely defy our current understanding of reality. So what do you think? Are these top-secret human drones, some completely unknown law of physics, or something else entirely? The truth is hiding somewhere in that data. We just have to find it.